Alright, so it's obviously been a little while since I've done one of these. We've had a new box recently and I haven't done a tier list since then. And obviously we're also right in the middle of a KC Cup, and a pretty important KC Cup at that, considering we're now getting the new Chronicle rarities as part of the KC Cup. I'm sure a lot of people are hyped to try to get a hold of those skins and that kind of stuff. So I thought you guys might appreciate to hear my thoughts on what I think the current best decks in the game are and just my general thoughts on the current meta game. So we've had about 2 weeks-ish now, I think, since the release of the latest box. So we have plenty of time to evaluate which decks are good, which decks are bad, and which decks you just completely and utterly avoid like the plague. So yeah, let's just jump straight into it. So first and foremost, we've got your true Draco. So as per usual, I can't cover every single deck in the game. I've tried to gather most relevant decks, but yeah, if your deck's not on here, don't be offended. It's just, it wasn't super popular, or just there isn't that many toppings in recent tournaments and stuff like that. So yeah, I just didn't put it on the list, so don't get offended. Anyway, so starting off with, we've got your true Draco. I don't like this deck whatsoever. I think it is incredibly meh. I don't think it's even like a rogue tier strategy. It's a deck that's like, if it gets going, it looks insane, but it's too reliant on getting that first turn doing well. If that first turn goes badly, it's doomed. I know a lot of decks are sort of like that, but this one is especially like that. It is too reliant on just getting its setup going, and if it doesn't get its setup going, it is doomed. It's also not that great going second, at least in my opinion, so I just don't think it hasn't even been getting many like toppings and tournaments and stuff, so it just seems pretty bad to me. Galaxy. So Galaxy's on here because it's recently seen quite a large resurgence because it can play the new Cyber Dragon card, the new, whatever it's, Infinity. And it's actually seen a decent amount of success with it. So I think it's probably a rogue tier strategy. It's definitely not top tier, but the new, actually just giving the deck an Omni Negate is actually quite a decent buff for it. So I'd say it's a rogue tier strat. I don't think it's good enough for tier 3. I think the stuff in tier 3 right now completely shits on it. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's someone in top 100 from the KC Cup that's on this deck. It definitely would not surprise me whatsoever. Alright, then we've got your Darkfluid. I think this is incredibly meh. I think it's meh, but it's also a deck that in the last KC Cup, I think got top 2, I think? And the meta isn't that different from the previous one, so that leads me to think I should put it in Rogue. If I was doing like a personal tier list, I think I'd put it in Meh, just because I think this thing is... I know this is basically a personal tier list, but maybe I should put it in Rogue tier. I think this deck is completely arse, though. I don't like it whatsoever. It's so reliant on... Now, it's terrible right now, because it's all based around one monster, and your opponent... And there's now Predaplant in the meta, and Predaplant just put a token on it and tribute it, and it's gone. It's literally gets Kaiju now, so... Yeah, if Predaplant's popular, which I expected to have a decent amount of play, this gets completely dunked on by that. So I think it's Darkfluid is a goner with Predaplant in the meta. I didn't think it was even very good before that, so... Alright. Darklord. Okay, that's a 10 new tier right there. This is some ass cheeks. Only reason it's even on this tier list is because I figured new deck, you guys might want to know my opinion on it. It's completely arse, okay? Do not touch this thing. It is... Yeah, you must be absolute masochist to play this deck. It is terrible. I don't know why they decided to swap the skill from previous nerf or like pre-release to when it actually came out, where they decided to swap one word in the skill and it changed the skill's future entirely. The deck is just completely unplayable. It's just arse. Which is a shame. I thought it'd be nice to see a bit of a resurgence of Darklord, but I guess it probably would have been a little bit too strong maybe if the skill came out in the way it did, but in the state that it was leaked to, but it's just... Don't play this deck now. It is a complete and utter brick first. I think the worst part about it is your main starter monster, the one that you want to have in your opening hand, if you're going second and you open that monster, you have to shuffle it away in order to get a hold of your going second card. So you have to get rid of your starter to get your going second card, your droplet. It just feels awful, man. I don't know why... Anyway, let's just move on. Alright. We've got your... I've forgotten the name of this deck because it's completely lame. Odd Eyes. Yeah, Odd Eyes is I've even chosen a really shitty artwork. I think this card's even remotely relevant for the art type at the moment, but anyway. This is a very meh deck. So, this got a new skill, And as it turns out, it just sort of plays very similar to the old skill, where it just sort of sets up very similar fields, which isn't that impressive anymore. If you played the old skill, you're probably doing about the same amount as you're doing with the new skill. Which is a good thing because nobody likes pendulums, so it's good that it's meh, but it just seems like, yeah, I think I'd even prefer to play True Draco over this right now. It just doesn't set up that much. It can set up a good field if you get going, maybe if you just, I don't know, it's just not that great. Shiranui, sorry. Shiranui. It's just a rogue tier strat. If you've heard this a billion times now, it's been in and out of the meta just for a billion, I was gonna say seasons, but a billion KC Cups now. It's not going to be doing anything too spectacular compared to what it was doing in the past. The game's gone more power crept since it was actually a top tier deck, and it's just, yeah, it's just sort of chilling. There's nothing really particularly countering it right now. I guess Lyrilusc can search DD Crow, which is not a good sign for it, since Lyrilusc is probably going to be the most popular deck in the format. So, with that being said, it's probably even lower tier than this, just because Lyrilusc can search it. But I have more faith in this deck than the stuff I put in this tier, so I'm going to keep it in Rogue, despite it probably being pretty bad into DD Crow. Alright, Shaddoll. Shaddoll's actually been doing fairly well, honestly. Which is kind of surprising considering it involves a lot of dark stuff. It involves a lot about Winder. All this kind of stuff gets shit on by things like Super Poly and Kaijus. And yeah, it's still been doing alright. I don't particularly even know why, but just based on results alone, I can't really put it any lower than tier 2, I don't think. I should have a look at the tournament results for... I think it's been doing really well, right? Yeah, Shaddoll's been doing actually really decent. I don't really know why, but... yeah, it's been putting up a decent amount of results recently, which is surprising. I literally can't even tell why. I'm just going to put it in tier 2, just based on results alone. Maybe someone in the comments has some feedback on why Shaddoll happens to be pretty good in the current meta, because based on what I've seen, I don't even know... I don't see a reason for it, but it must be doing something. Maybe they're just using Winder on Lyrilusc, and Lyrilusc is, I don't know, not able to eclipse them or something. I don't know. Your plants. Plants are just a rogue deck. Plants have a little bit of an edge. I have a little bit of an advantage in the Lyrilusc matchup, I think, because they have the AoE negate, but it's still heavily reliant on drawing the perfect text to make sure your opponent can't play through that one negate, because it's still only a one negate. You need to have you have the bounce of the field as well, but it's not that useful versus Lyrilusc. It's mostly just the fact that you can negate the field non-target. So he's definitely relying on text, and relying on text is a very, very iffy thing to do. So I'm not super confident in it. It's not too bad into the rest of the meta. I think just the Lyrilusc matchup is just sort of, yeah, draw your text or you're going to struggle. And I don't think that's a very viable strategy right now. It's also just sort of power crept compared to most of the strong... The meta's very strong right now, and I don't think... I don't think it really holds its own anymore. Very similar to our next deck. We've got your ancient... No. What's it called? The discount god cards, whatever they're called. Yeah, not that great anymore. This used to be pretty good, but it's sort of just been power crept to just push to the wayside. Just having a big untargetable boy isn't really that insane currently, considering the entire meta is trying to counter an untargetable boy. So it's just like a billion Book of Eclipses, there's the Kaiju from your Predaplant, there's just plenty of ways to deal with this. It's just not that scary at the moment, not anymore anyway, so we put it in Rogue tier. Fleur, that is a tier 2. So I'm putting every single Fleur deck in the same category because I cannot be bothered going through them all. This includes your Infernoble Knight, your what's it called? Your Necros, your I can forget all the names of these archetypes. You get what I mean. There's a billion different Fleur archetypes. There's the Dogmatica, all the Fleur archetypes, putting them in one because I can't bother going through them all. And they're all about the same in terms of strength. Basically, the deck is, the archetype or the skill is so versatile that at least one of these archetypes is going to do well in the KC Cup. Also important to note, Fleur is the archetype that can still make Bishbolkin, and Bishbolkin is a massive counter to Lyrilusc. So if Lyrilusc turns out to be so overwhelmingly popular in the KC Cup, people will just start Bishbolkening them, and it will turn out very similar to day one of the last KC Cup, where they just Bishbolkened the entire ladder, and it was literally Fleur was the entire ladder, just farming the shit out of your Lyrilusc decks. So I have a lot of faith in this deck to do well in KC Cup. I expect to see quite a lot of them. Mayakashi. I've been seeing a surprising amount of Mayakashi, actually. I'm not sure if it's just the same single player, but every time I've tuned into Harrier's tournaments over on Twitch, they've been Mayakashi. I think it's the same Mayakashi guy. He's just been farming tournaments, just getting like second place. I think he got second place recently in one of them. And it just actually looks pretty decent for some reason. I don't know if the guy just is insane at Mayakashi or something, but it's been looking good. I wouldn't put it in tier 3 just because of one guy's been doing super well on it, but it does actually look a lot better than I thought it would anyway, so I'm going to put it in tier 3. I don't think it's probably much better than that. I think it's still pretty bad into things like DD Crow, which Lyrilusc can search, so I'm not sure how exactly it's doing so well, but it's definitely better than bad tier anyway. It's better than the trash going on down here right now. Lyrilusc. So Lyrilusc is in an incredibly weird state, because I can't do anything but put it in tier 1. It'd be a disservice to it to not put it in tier 1. But at the same time, every single player going into the KC Cup is looking at this deck and wanting to counter it, or at least making sure they have ways to deal with it, which makes it seem a lot weaker than it probably is. Like, in terms of where it's probably going to get results-wise, it's probably just going to be like it's probably going to be the same as like most of the other top tier decks. I don't think it's going to be some absurd outlier, just because everybody is going to play counters to Lyrilusc. If everyone's playing outs to Lyrilusc, it no longer seems that insane. But in terms of power level, it is definitely a tier 1. It is currently the meta-defining deck where everyone is staring at it, looking for counters, trying to play around it, that kind of stuff. So it's definitely the best deck, but it's also the deck everyone's looking at. So despite being tier 1, it's probably, result-wise, not going to be that much higher than anything else, just purely just based on every single player targeting it. Which, to be fair, I feel leads to quite a decent meta, which is odd, where just Lyrilusc is the best deck, but it doesn't seem that much better than everything else, which is kind of cool. Alright, Cyber Dragon. Unfortunately, this is a Met deck. I like Cyber Dragon a lot. It is very, very close to a top tier deck. It's just missing one particular card, and it will probably be top tier. A certain trap card that is currently on the ban list, and it's probably top tier. The issue with it is obviously, it's pretty similar to how Wind Witch works, where you set up this pretty insane monster-heavy field, and then you get hit by an Eclipse. You get hit by a Droplet. And then you're very, very reliant on top deck. You're opening up a Barrage Blast or some kind of back row card or something. Otherwise, you just sort of lose. It's too monster heavy right now. It needs to have its back row card in order to be an actual solid deck in the current meta when everyone's playing things like Eclipse and stuff. So I'm going to put it in Rogue tier. It's very close to tier 3, just needs its trap card. At least I think it'll be tier 3 with its trap card. Alright, Shark. Shark is not putting up very many results recently, but I think that's just because of underplay. The deck seems pretty good. I think it seems pretty good. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Yeah, I think Shark seems pretty good. Shark has been doing, yeah, like I said, not many tournament results, I don't think, recently, but the deck itself doesn't seem bad in any way. It seems to be doing exactly the same stuff it was doing before. It can still set up things like Needle Sealing. It can still do, yeah, all the standard Shark stuff it was doing before. So it's probably still a tier 3 deck. I don't know. It's hard to rate this deck, so I don't think many people have been playing it. I guess I can look at the DLM and see if there's been many results recently. I don't remember seeing many, so I don't think it's that good. Shark, any tourney results? It has a couple. Way less than Shaddoll, but it has a couple, so I guess it's probably tier 3-ish. I don't know. Which I'm wondering how many tournament results Galaxy has. I wonder if Galaxy's similar. Let's have a look. Galaxy. No, Galaxy's only got 2. Not quite as good. I want to check Mayakashi as well, just while we're here. Oh, it's 2 of the same player. Alright. Yeah, I think that's fine. Tachyon. Tachyon is pretty meh. Tachyon got its skill buffed, and it got played a shit ton on the ladder. And I think people realize it just sort of is, it's an okay deck. It's not great. It just seems to be the kind of thing that's probably fun for people that enjoyed playing Tachyon previously, but it's just not as good as it was. What isn't as good as it was before, and the metagame's gotten quite a bit stronger, I think, since then anyway, so it's fine. Don't think it's anything particularly too crazy, so we're just going to dump it in Met here. Star Seraph, that is a rogue deck. Star Seraph, they've got one big issue, and that is they just suck against Lyrilusc, because they don't have access to the main Lyrilusc counter anymore in their Book of Eclipse. I think they've gotten, like, no results at all since the, they had a few results, I guess, but they're about the same as the other ones in Met here. It just had a terrible time since the skill nerf in combination with the Eclipse being removed from the deck. If it's had Eclipse still, it'd easily be up here somewhere. But without Eclipse, it just seems to be a lot worse. I wouldn't count it out too much. I think compared to the other stuff in here, it's probably up around the top. One of these guys up here, something like that. Yeah, I think it's definitely a decent deck, but without Eclipse, it doesn't have a reliable out to Lyrilusc, and it's not that great of one. But it does have I guess the new skill, I think the new skill's mad to the game, which is just basically a revert to the nerfs the old skill, so maybe it's a lot better than I think it is. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple in the top tiers, but right now it's not doing as good because of the lack of Eclipse in Lyrilusc. Why have I got a second Fleur here? Alright, ignore this. This is apparently Fleur as well. I don't know why I've got two of them. Striker. Striker I want to put in tier 1, but it's a bad matchup into Lyrilusc. But I feel like if you're an insane player, I've been looking at the results of the past, like, ever since Striker released, just looking at KC Cup results, in the top 10, there's normally a Striker player. It just seems like the kind of deck where if you're insane at it, regardless of it, even if it's a bad meta for it, it still does well. I don't know why. It just is a very, very skilled deck, and if you're very good at it, you just farm with it regardless of whatever meta it is. So if you're a good player, honestly, result-wise, it could be up here somewhere. You're probably going to see one in top 10 again. I literally wouldn't be surprised if there was a top 10 Striker player again, just because there seems to always be, despite whatever meta's going on, Striker just makes top 10. So it's probably power level-wise good enough to be tier 1, but result-wise, I don't think that many people are playing it. I don't think many people will play it, and it's a bit too of a high skilled for the general population, I'd say, to be playing it, but I honestly want to put it up here, just based on result-wise, but yeah, we'll put it there for now. I'm starting to doubt putting Shaddoll in tier 2. I kind of want to see the results of Shaddoll again. How many were there? Oh no, there's way too many for not to put it in tier 2. That shit is farming. Ghostrick. Okay, I'm putting this in tier 1. Dude, Ghostrick seems so much better than it has been. Look, I'll just show you an actual, a really funny tournament result recently. Just a funny as fuck tournament result. Where is it? Let's look up a Ghostrick card real quick. So, in one of Harrier's recent tournaments, it must have been this one. Alright. There were the full deck type breakdown. We had all these different archetypes tuning in. We had like 16 Predaplant, 14 Lyrilusc, 12 Shaddoll, and then we had 6 Ghostrick players. And then we move on to top card. 5 of the 6 Ghostrick players made it through to top card, which is a crazy thing. I think a Ghostrick player got second, I think it was. They got second. I think this deck is looking way better than it's getting credit for. I think the main reason it won't see as much play in KC Cup is just speed-wise. It is an incredibly slow deck. I think a lot of people are kind of falling asleep to it. But my god, has it been popping off in tournament results. It's also a heavy sort of counter to Lyrilusc. I don't even know if this matchup is playable for Lyrilusc. It seems terrible. I think the only upside that other decks, or the only downside it's got going for it is the matchups outside of Lyrilusc is a lot harder. Like, I don't think it outgrinds Shaddoll very easily. Sometimes it probably can. Fleur have They open the from hand pop. If you don't have the trap card set, it feels pretty bad. Striker probably farm it, I would imagine. So I don't think it's into other decks. It doesn't seem that great, but I want to put it in tier 1, man. I've been loving to look at this deck. It seems way more disgusting than it actually is. Oh, sorry, the other way around. It seems way more disgusting than people are giving it credit for. The skill is just incredibly broken. It literally just generates cards and value. And the fact that it seems like the best counter, I would say, to Lyrilusc right now. I think that should give it more props in the upcoming cup. So you're looking for a deck that isn't Lyrilusc, that counters Lyrilusc. If you're seeing plenty of them, I think Ghostrick would be your pick. I'm loving the look at Ghostrick. I'm sticking it in tier 1. Duel Links. I think this deck is probably hot garbage right now. I'm not gonna... It just doesn't seem very good anymore. Especially with the release of Predaplant. It's all dark. It all gets, like, super polyed very, very easily. Are you even setting up, like, anything in particular that just seems good? Your turn 1 is incredibly mid. No, it just does not seem as good as the rest of the stuff on this tier list. I don't like it that much at all. I think it's going to fall off drastically. Although I say that, but the last KC Cup, I think it did quite well. Is anyone even playing this deck anymore? Let's have a look. Duel Links. Oh, it has quite a lot of results still. Alright, if it's got that many results, it's probably tier 3. But I wouldn't expect many in KC Cup. I'd be surprised if there's a... I wonder if Shark's even got that many, because Shark's like an anti-graveyard deck, and what's even graveyard at the moment? I'm putting Borrel in tier 3. Can I really give this tier 3? I don't like Shark very much, actually. I wouldn't put it in Rogue tier. I haven't seen much action from the Shark camp recently. I don't know. I don't like Shark compared to some of the other stuff on here. Borrel is probably better than it, and I don't like Borrel either. I think tier 3 is just kind of a bit of a weak-ish tier right now. It just seems to be a bit lacking in the... Just seems to be a bit lacking. Alright, next up, we have your Ancient Warrior. I think this deck is probably the strongest of the garbage. I do not like Ancient Warrior whatsoever. I don't get probably a lot of comments about this one, I think. I think a lot of people are liking this deck or think it seems pretty good. I'm not liking it at all. If I'm looking at these decks in Rogue tier and I'm comparing them to Ancient Warrior, there's not a single one in Rogue tier I would even put it remotely close to being the same power level. I think this deck is just arse. It's just... I don't know, man. It just is not that good. The turn 1 isn't... When it pops off pretty hard, but it also doesn't pop off to the extent you want it to every single game. It's not consistent enough where your turn 1 end field is the optimal end field every single time, which leads to it just feeling just not as good as the other stuff in here, which is just entirely 100% consistent. You're opening the same end fields every single time. Yeah, it's going second is just not great. It has like one card to help it going second, and it just doesn't feel very good. I don't like it at all. Its room for tech slots is very limited because you're playing so many boys to make your combos function. A lot of the time you're playing things like over 20 card, just trying to get up to like 25 to 30 card just to fit all the stuff you need into the deck to make it run functional, the engine pieces, and try to fit in tech cards. It's just not there, man. It's so close to being a top tier deck. I think before this thing released, I rated it pretty highly in terms of potential, but after it released... Yeah, I don't like it at all. Predaplant. This is a solid tier 2 deck. Predaplant, I'm not sure what they do going first against Lyrilusc. A lot of them are making the Nightingale just to make it sort of pass the turn, so you could maybe get them remove their field on the next turn and stuff like that. I haven't been seeing enough gameplay from the top players to see exactly what the best strategies are going first against Lyrilusc. But against everything else going first, it is completely fine. And going second versus Lyrilusc, it's completely fine as well. So that leads me to believe in terms of just... It's probably like one of the highest rated here. I think even compared to like looking at these other stuff in the meta, it seems to have a pretty good matchup against most stuff in here. The main weakness of Predaplant at the moment seems to be back row, just because it doesn't have much innate back row removal. I think Ghostrick could completely farm it. So I think because of that, if there was a back row deck that was super meta relevant, it would definitely fall down a bit. But without back row decks being in the meta, and most of the stuff being just like easily hit by kaijus and just wiping fields and just all the bullshit that it currently does, it just seems like a tier 2 deck to me. The only sort of thing I'm not sure on is the turn 1 versus Lyrilusc. It still seems incredibly iffy. But if that's the only worry, I mean, it's going to do alright in the KC Cup. I'd be very, very surprised if you don't see plenty of results from Predaplant. Time Thief, that's just a rogue deck. Going first, you're good. Going second, I mean, you're probably just going to get Predaplant counted. Even going first, you're probably going to get Predaplant counted and tributed on your main Time Thief. Even using him during standby feels like absolute shit. But it's still a fairly decent deck. I wouldn't be surprised if one person was crazy enough to get a top 100 placing with it. It's also a deck I'm a big fan of, so I'd like it to do well, but realistically, it's probably only just above meh tier. It just isn't all that. Raidraptor. Again, there's so many decks in rogue tier, man, but a lot of these decks are just like, there's so many decks that I feel like are on the brim of being a top tier deck. They just need like one more extra support card or one more strong little love tap to boost it into the top tiers, but they're just not quite there. I think most of the stuff this applies to is like your Cyber Dragon, your whatever this is. If this had Eclipse back, it'd be top tier. I think Galaxy's also so close. They always seem to be on the brim of a top tier deck, but they're just not quite there. Yeah, a lot of these decks just fall into that category. They're so close to being top tier, but not quite there. And I think Raidraptor is definitely one of them. Its turn 1's insane. Going second has some tools, especially in the skill, that let it sort of play going second, but it just doesn't. It's not quite there. It's just not quite there. Blue Eyes, this is your required Blue Eyes assessment of the current meta, just because you have to do it on every tier list. Blue Eyes currently is meh. It's fallen off hard. It's still doing all the same stuff it was doing when it was a meta deck, but the meta's just gotten so much stronger since this thing was considered top tier, and now it just. Yeah, it's not. Don't be playing Blue Eyes if you want to have a good time in the current cup. I'd be very surprised if it does anything really. Unchained. I think Unchained is pretty bad or pretty meh. I think DLM has this at tier 3 right now. I don't think I really agree with that. I don't like the. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to be setting up enough stuff against the current best decks. The matchups do not seem very good. I think Unchained as a deck is still really strong, but current format, it just, I don't know, it just does not seem very good. It's also a dark art type, gets super polyed by your Predaplants. It just doesn't have much going for it, really. It's also all destruction based. Lyrilusc is completely just activate one card, they're immune to destruction. I don't know, I don't like it very much at all. Wind Witch, and sadly this is meh. This is Cyber Dragon, basically, the same sort of reasoning as Cyber Dragon, but it doesn't even set up an Omni Negate. So at least Cyber Dragon can negate the one Book of Eclipse, and then they have not much disruption left. This can't even deal with the Book of Eclipse at all. It just gets flipped face down, and that's your turn done. It's completely done so. At least Cyber Dragon can negate the Eclipse and have at least their Chronomaly on the field, and that's a negation. Maybe even 2 negations if they opens that one Galaxy card that gets the second Chronomaly on the field. But yeah, this one, it's setting up 2 disruptions, and they both lose to Eclipse instantly, so it's not very good. Also, its follow-up super awkward, because if you still got one monster on the field, you probably can't use your Wind Witches in hand, so I don't like it very much. Zombie. Probably Rogue? It's hard to rate this one, because I don't think that many people will play it that often anymore, but I still think it's doing about the same sort of bullshit that it was doing before. This is more leaning towards like the Synchro Spam one rather than the super play with the field spell zombie deck. It's more leaning towards the Synchro Spam one, which I think is still pretty good. I don't really see a reason why it wouldn't be. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least one in top 100, but it's definitely better than the stuff in Rogue tier currently. I don't like any of the stuff in here. I think this deck is, at least as a chance, is probably better than Time Thief. Probably better than this deck too, honestly. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, and that's the second Fleur deck by accident. All right, so I think that is going to be my tier list. Is there anything I want to move around? Let me just reorder some of these based on personal preference. Chain's probably better than Galaxy. Alright, Side just gonna get demoted, I think. Side without the trap card is so much worse. It's probably back there somewhere. Yeah, I think that is... So from left to right, I think that's how I'd order it currently. Alright, so I think that's going to do it for my tier list. Let me know your thoughts down below. Is this tier list inaccurate? Is it completely wrong? Have I missed something? Any archetypes you'd like me to rate? Feel free to leave all your thoughts and stuff in the comments down below. If there's any archetypes I missed and you'd like me to give my review on them, feel free to leave those archetypes in the comments and I might review them down there. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Make sure to subscribe, like, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, have fun in the KC Cup. Laters.